Ladies and gentlemen, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome to the show, hot off a masterful finish over at Javelina Jundred, is Riley Brady. Riley, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. I haven't had my first sip of coffee yet, so you'll need to forgive me if I'm a little slow on the brain. So,
Yeah, I get that.
are you a coffee person?
I am, but only one cup in the very early morning. Otherwise, I'm wired all night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have a certain limit and then it becomes just too much. Like I'm cracking out. It's not good. It's like taking a caffeine gel too early in a race. It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
there's a time and place for it all, right? So my first question for you is what are your pronouns?
They, them.
They, them. Okay, I'm he, him. And that's a very relevant part of the story as you finished at Javelina Jundred this last weekend. But first off, congratulations on your golden ticket performance. You are headed to Western States, which I imagine you've got to be. What are you feeling right now about that?
I'm really excited. I think it's finally all just kind of starting to soak in now that I'm back home and a little bit more settled. It's been a goal for a long time, and so to finally have kind of like gotten to the point where I'm getting to go to this amazing big deal race in our sport, I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I know you're very close to your parents, and they're big supporters of yours, especially when it comes to your running. What was their response to you getting your golden ticket?
They were definitely excited for me and proud of me. My mom said that when I came through, I guess on loop 4, that she was so nervous she almost threw up, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, you're
Um,
like, hold up, mom, that's my job.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I couldn't do this without them. They really helped me out. They always crew me. So it's, ultra running's a team sport, and they're definitely a big part of my team.
That's really amazing. And you're so lucky to have that support system already built in. A lot of parents, they struggle seeing their little one. Well, you're not so little anymore, but you'll always be little in their eyes. Seeing them struggle in a race. Was that difficult for them at first?
Yeah. When I first got into this, I was in college, and their reaction was much more, are you sure you want to be doing this? Like, is this healthy? Like, you can stop anytime. And I had to be like, you can't say that.
Yeah.
um, and then I they sort of, for my first ultra, they picked me up at a train station and dropped me off at the race, and then they went and did their thing for the day and picked me up at the end of the event. And then it was a few more races after that I think they actually came and were kind of there throughout the day to spectate, and that was a turning point for them. Like, they just got welcomed into the community, and they were like, oh my god, the trail community is awesome. They made all these friends crewing. And after that, they got it. They were like, we see that this is a legitimate sport. We get why you want to do this.
Yeah, that is so cool. Way to go, mom and dad. I love that. So you finished Javelina in 14 hours, 45 minutes. Blazing fast, 45 minutes just behind Devin Yanko, who just threw it down that day. What an amazing performance. But before we get to your race, I really want to get into the nuts and bolts of your race and why it was so successful for you. But I think we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is that I think it's fair to say that things got kind of messy for a hot minute there, not of your doing, but by the race organizers who have just admitted, yeah, we kind of, we messed up on this part of it. We'll do better next time, So can you explain to the audience what transpired there at the finish from your point of view?
Yeah. So I crossed the finish line, and Jubilee announced me as the first place in the non-binary division. And I immediately turned to her and I said, wait, I am non-binary, but I thought that I had registered to compete in the female category, because that is how I have done it in the past, with Vermont 100, which is also making an effort to try to be inclusive on this front. And I had a conversation with Ultra Sign Up probably about a year ago, and had told them, this is, for me, this is how I want to compete. I can't speak for everybody, but, on your website, if you have an option to kind of indicate your gender and then indicate your sex or what category you want to compete in, that might be the best way right now to handle it. And they listened to me. So on my Ultra Sign Up, I've got my gender listed as non-binary, but to compete in the female division. And so I was surprised when Jubilee said that. And then when we had a conversation after that, they said, oh, we just, this is our first year doing this, and we just automatically pulled from the gender category from Ultra Sign Up. So I don't know if that was kind of like a technological glitch, but they're trying, and this is a first year, and there's bound to be kind of kinks that need to get worked out. And I think that was one of them.
Yeah. Jamil Corey, who's with Aravaipa, they put on the race there. He said, quote, "We basically screwed up. I'll own it. We miscategorized them in the online race results, and our team was amplifying that on social media based on some internal miscommunication. We didn't play through every scenario, and there are probably scenarios that are still unforeseen." So credit to them for owning up to it. And I think it's when people get hyped up, it's kind of like the fog of war. You just kind of lose the clarity there for a minute and all the excitement, which is what it is.
Yeah. And to their credit, like, I think, yeah, they made this mistake, but they're really making an effort. Like, Jamil spoke with me at the awards ceremony and was sort of asking, like, how do you think we can do this better? So I don't want them, like, I think they're doing a great job, and really, really trying with it.
Yeah. And this is relatively new territory. And I'm really excited that trail running community is kind of, they're one of the sports that are almost I won't say they're at the forefront, but they are in an evolution of sorts right now. And so there's bound to be some hiccups. But I think one of the most important parts of this story is that you're bringing this conversation forward inadvertently. But yeah. I mean, I think you probably would have brought the story forward anyway, just because you took second place at Javelina. And I think it's important to raise awareness for you, your story, your community. And so I think we should maybe take advantage of that here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of right that it was a little bit inadvertent. Like, I was kind of just thrust into this. Historically, this has been something I've been pretty quiet about, because I want to run. And I was talking to my coach, and I was saying, like, I don't want this to be the one thing about me that people focus in on. Like, yeah, it's a part of my life and it's a part of who I am, but it's not the only thing about me. That being said, like, obviously, I think this is an important conversation to have. And like you said, I think trail running is doing a good job of kind of being a major player in this conversation at this moment in time.
Yeah. Oh, well, I appreciate you, just kind of getting uncomfortable enough with me, but comfortable enough with me to, to share this part of your story. And this is something I do want to kind of jump in a little deeper on later on, but, I want to talk about the race first, because damn it, it was a great race. But there is one other element to this that I just wanted to get your opinion about, which is, Nicole Bitter's story on this. That, reports have said that she was being told during the race that she was running in second place, when in actuality she was in third place. And that's what her official finish is in third. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so because I was racing, I didn't know that that's what she was being told. And like, I feel bad. That would be really frustrating, I think, from her perspective to like be confused at the finish line. But I was pretty unaware of that when I was out there. And I think that I don't know, hopefully that's something that like won't happen again going forward.
Yeah.
And I'm really, uh, I don't want that to happen to other people. Cause like, yeah, that's frustrating to not really have a sense of where you are.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a competitive event like this. And, um, yeah, and you're racing for a ticket.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, I just want to get your read on it. Because I think it's an important part of the story. And you're right, it's gonna be, like we said, there are gonna be hiccups along the way. And this isn't on you. This isn't like, it's not something that you created. It is just a byproduct of just this process that I think everyone is just trying to like figure out. And like Jamil said, that there probably are scenarios we haven't even seen yet, or foreseen. So, so credit to everyone where it's due for everybody. So, I don't know. For me, I don't know if it's plausible that the Western States Board kind of says, all right, we'll never know if Nicole had the juice to reel in Riley that day. But should they consider a third golden ticket for her based on kind of the mess up that was happening on the course? That isn't your fault. And I don't know, because I don't want to take away from your performance either, So it's definitely a sticky situation, for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, like I said, I had no idea about sort of any of this other
Yeah.
stuff that was going on.
That must have been surprising to you. To finish and you're like, what just happened? Like, I just want to like celebrate, but there's all this like commotion that is not my fault, folks.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised at the finish line, but I was also just like totally out of it. So post 100-mile brain.
Right. You're pretty much a zombie at that point. Point me to a chair and some damn hot food, okay?
Yep.
And warm clothes. That's all I need. Okay. Well, I think that's that part of the story is just all I kind of wanted to touch on again, because this really is a deeper conversation, I think, in terms of the nuts and bolts of it for the race organizers. And so, maybe we'll have that conversation. I don't know. But kudos to everyone for doing their very best. I think everyone did their very best that day. So moving on to the race itself, it's, Devin, I got to highlight Devin Yanko again, of her first place finish. And what do you think about her performance that day?
I think it was amazing. I know Devin has been dealing with some health issues kind of leading up to this race for the past few months, and I just like am totally blown away by her performance. I didn't see her all day, so she ran really strong. She's awesome. We actually met at the start line and we were both like, we knew each other's names, but we never met in person before.
What's that like to you when, Devin Yanko knows my name?
That was pretty surprising. I was like, what? How do you know me? Like, you're the one who's been crushing it in this sport for a long time. But the trail community is small. I think we have some mutual friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, Devin just blew it out of the water.
Yeah, she landed the second fastest course record just behind Camille, who nailed that, I think, in 2021.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like she's got 3 of the top 5 fastest finishes for 100 so far this year. And so do you with this performance that you have. Did you have a chance to run with her at all, or did you as she was just gone from the very
go? She was gone. We talked at the start line and then I collapsed into her arms at the finish line, but I didn't see her on
Wait,
course.
You did?
Yeah. I mean, I crossed the finish line and she was sitting down and she stood up and gave me a big hug. And yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That must have been a pretty cool moment for you. I wish I could have seen that. But it sounds like you were firing on all cylinders that day. Can you talk about how the race went for you?
Yeah, it was really fun. I have never done this runnable of a ultra maybe before, definitely not of 100 miles. So this was a first first 100 for sure, where I ran every single step. I didn't hike at all. I first lap was great. I was sticking to my nutrition plan. Everything is going well. It's still early in the day, so everybody feels amazing.
Guys, can I pause right there? What is your nutrition plan?
Well, going into it was try to get in like 350-ish calories an hour, taking a gel like every 20 or so minutes and sipping on scratch. And then that all went out the door with lap 2. I took a raspberry gel and immediately puked twice. I was like, all right. So plan B is just like let the stomach settle, take a little bit of a break. So I did that and then tried another raspberry gel, thinking like, I want to make sure this either isn't going to work, or if it will work, then I can keep using these. And immediately puked 3 more times.
Oh,
so
boy.
No more raspberry gels. And after that, I also really dialed back the calories I was taking in, because I think I can handle like 350, 400 in training when I'm only doing like a 20 or 25 mile long run. But it just wasn't sitting well for the day. So I just adjusted and switched to some other foods, and didn't
Did you
end
go
up
to a more solid food or?
Yeah, so I also had mashed potato packets as like a backup, and those tend to go down really well. So I switched to those, and my lemon lime gels were okay. Fruit was going down really well. But I have a lot of trouble chewing when I'm running, so I don't get people who can like, I don't know, they're like snacking on cookies or stuff like that. I'm like, it's got to just kind of slide down.
Yeah, I'm with you. If it's not like, if I can just not slurp it, then it's not going in my body.
Yeah, pretty much. Fruit is the only thing that I can kind of like munch on a little bit.
Okay, so you're problem solving through loop 2, and then continue.
Then loop 3, that sort of starting the heat of the day. So mentally, I was like, all right, this is the Wednesday loop, like hump day loop, got to get through it. But things went relatively well in loop 3. Like I don't really remember any specifics from it, so that's probably a good thing. And then going into loop 4, I was like, all right, it's going to be cooling off by the end of this. So that was like a little bit of a mental boost. And that was also when I found out I was running in 3rd position by the time I got to Jackass Junction. And I was a little bit skeptical of it because of the loop course nature of it. I think it can be hard to tell really where people are running, and there's the 100K. And so I was like, I don't know if that's true, but if it is, I gotta hang in there. And then by loop 5, it's finally getting dark. I stopped icing down. And that was huge mentally. I was like, all right, the heat's gone. So I should be able to really pick it up at this point. And I had 2 new lighting systems, because I had this theory, like if it can really illuminate the trail, like even if it's not that technical, it should help me run faster. And it worked. And that's also when I passed Heather Jackson, who ran a really strong race. I tried to get her to come with me, because I was like, all right, if we can push this together, like we're both it'll help both of us. But she had to get a lamp on, and I didn't end up seeing her again. And once I got to Jackass Junction in the 5th loop, it's kind of all downhill, which is my favorite running. So I was like, all right, time to really hammer at this point.
And did you have the resources, the energy to be able to do what you wanted, to make your body do what you wanted?
Yeah. I always feel good running downhill. Like it's free speed,
Yeah.
And I had intentionally gone out at a very comfortable pace for me. knowing or at least hoping that like I'd be able to finish strong. And I think looking back at my splits for the loops, it's all like pretty consistent throughout the day. So even though I felt like I was running really hard in the last lap, I guess I was really just running the same as what I had been all day. It just felt faster. um, the last 5K were definitely fast. I was like high sevens, I think, for the last like three miles.
At what point in the race did you realize that I got this? I'm going to get the golden ticket.
When I crossed the finish line.
Oh,
I mean, I sort of, after I passed the last aid station, I was like, all right, you know, I'm running strong. I feel good. But I knew I had Heather Jackson, Casey Lichtai, Nicole Bitter. Like I knew I had a lot of strong athletes out there behind me. And like, what if they're having a good moment? Like they could be just crushing. So like it's never over till it's over.
No, it's not. So at this point, you know you're running second, right?
Yeah.
And so your people are telling you that all throughout. So, but talk about the having that target, that bullseye on your back for such an important race. What's that like for you?
It's kind of exciting. Like it's a race. Like I really like chasing people. That's kind of my preferred position to be in. But being chased is fun too. Like it's, I don't know, it's exciting.
It is exciting. It's almost, I've only had one experience in my life where I had the bullseye, and it was a night run. So it felt like I was in like a zombie movie.
Yeah.
Where people are like there, and because you had like headlamps on, so you get the flashlights, and like so it's like there's people are searching. So it definitely felt like that. Like, oh boy, there's a bit of a little bit of panic in there too.
I don't know that I was panicked at all. Like I mean, I guess I kept thinking I was hearing like people coming up behind me. But I think that that's just the nature of like, there's a lot of people out in that course. So you are just constantly, there are people in front of you and behind you.
Yeah. But all you see is a headlamp back there. You're like,
right.
Could that be Nicole just like hauling ass?
Right. Yeah. So I don't know that I would say I was panicked, but I definitely was aware that there were really strong women behind me. And I did not underestimate that.
Yeah. And just for clarity's sake, I felt panicked in my own race, not you. Okay. So I imagine that it must have been some wonderful chaos when you came into an aid station to see your crew. What was the plan to get you in and out on such a, so quickly?
Yeah. So I have 2 vests. So my crew would take my old vest and give me my freshly packed new vest. For most of the day, for laps 2, 3, and 4, I was heavily using ice. So they'd have my vest just soaking in an ice bucket. So they'd get that on me. Somebody else was putting sunscreen on me. My best friend was there too, crewing. So she'd kind of help me say, like, do you want us to take anything out of this for the next loop, or get me some food, because she's a runner too. So she kind of gets how that goes. And then, get some ice in my hat and get out of there. They're at this point, they're a pretty well-oiled machine. They've done this a few times.
Yeah. And that's great. Do you ever sit at an aid station?
No, if I don't know that I would get up if I took a seat. My goal is also to just be really efficient in the aid stations, because it's really easy to just, if you're stopping at every aid station, which in this race I was, because I wanted to make sure I was getting the ice, like that time can really start to add up. And I don't typically like to change my shoes if I can avoid it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the only reason I could see sitting down.
Yeah. So during this race, does doubt ever enter your mind at all?
What do you mean? Like doubt in
Like,
my ability,
yeah,
or?
I guess I don't know if I can keep this up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to achieve my goal here.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely at the start of the race, when the field just went out so fast, I was like, man, this is a strong field of competitors. Like, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get a golden ticket today.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just run my race and do my best,
Yeah.
and see what happens, because it's never over till it's over. But, I kind of thought a golden ticket was out the window for at least the first 100K when I was running. I was like, yeah, I knew some people were going to blow up, but I also thought like some people are going to be able to hold that.
Yeah.
And Devin totally did.
Yeah. Did you have any concerns about yourself about blowing up, or were you just like, nah, I'm gonna be fine till the finish?
I think when I was puking in the second lap, I was like, this is not good. It's only the second lap. I really hope that I can kind of troubleshoot and move past this. After that, though, I wasn't that worried about blowing up. I have confidence in my ability to finish strong. I've done that before. And I knew that I was running a pretty sustainable pace for those first few loops. My bigger concern is almost always my stomach, that's going to go wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would definitely give me the fear once that first gel comes up.
Yeah.
And then when the third, fourth one comes up, then it's like, all right.
Yeah.
Is it just the gels? Is it, this could just turn into a massive disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you someone who needs a lot of calories during a race?
Well, I mean, after that little episode, I was not eating as much as I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I probably only averaged like 100 and 150 per hour,
Wow.
maybe, for the rest of the race. So I was running pretty low on calories. I didn't feel like I really hit that bonking low though out there. So it worked. It worked on the day.
Wow.
It's definitely something I'm going to keep working on, because I think the science really supports, like, as much as you can get in and hold in, the better. So it's definitely something I want to keep practicing and moving towards, like, as many calories as I can possibly handle.
Yeah. Yeah. One, I wanted to ask you about the start of the race. And if you ever get the chance, more of a where you got a lot of elites in the field, and to just to be at the start line for a bit and just observe. It's pretty intense. Some cases there's some joking going on, but a lot of straight faces. So what's that like to be corralled with so much talent, including yourself, in one spot?
It's pretty awesome. Like, I was surrounded by a lot of women that I've looked up to for a long time. And yeah, it's a little intimidating, because it's a strong field, and everybody out there, in that lead group is trying to go for a ticket. Or, most people are. But trail running's the best. Like, people are so friendly and so welcoming and encouraging. And it's, you see people at races that you meet up with again in the future. Like, Arden, we had raced together at Bandera, and this was my first time seeing her since we saw each other at Bandera. So it was exciting. We hugged at the start line. Like, I don't know. I think that's one of the things that makes trail running great, is that it's friendly, it's competitive, but it's really supportive.
Yeah. So with the and you're absolutely right about that. It's one of the reasons why I love the sport so much, and why I'm talking to you. So golden ticket. Holy moly. Here we go. Western States. How are you? You said that it's just starting to sink in earlier. So what are your thoughts about Western States, and kind of where does your mind go to thinking about that?
First of all, I'm just so excited. Like, I crewed and paced my friend Ellie this past summer at Western States, and that was my first time being out there, and it was like the best weekend of my life. To have so many runners all in one place, the energy is awesome. So I am over the moon to be towing the line this year. The other part of me is like, 100 miles, that's so far. But I think once the soreness goes away, I'll be ready to do it again.
You're like, hold on, I think I feel another raspberry gel coming up.
Yeah.
just thinking about it. So you referred to Ellie Pell, who
yes.
She was on this show earlier this year. I got to see her at States, and I think her energy is just the coolest. What has she been telling you, or have you been asking her questions already about States?
We've been in touch, but I haven't jumped in on the specifics yet. She's just been so supportive, and she's like, I'm so excited to be there for you. And she claimed pacing from Forest Hill to the river, because she says, I'm not going through that river again. It was cold. So I'm excited to have her on my team. Now that she's got the experience. So.
Yeah. And she's an energy boost. I mean, she's your own gel packet, right?
Yeah, she totally is. She's awesome like that.
Yeah. So this next part of the interview, it's going to get more personal. And I hope that you're comfortable with that, because I know that you're like, listen, I'm just a runner. I did not ask to be like the spokesperson for the non-binary community, but I also think that this is a teachable moment to raise awareness for folks. So I think it's an important conversation to have. So how do you feel about that?
About having the conversation?
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I think it's like, it's an important conversation to have. I think that I can't speak for everyone. So I'm just trying to kind of do my best and explain where I'm coming from with these things. But I am a little concerned. Like, I know that the way I feel is not the same way that other people who identify in a similar way to me might feel. And so I don't want anyone to think like I'm that's the case for everyone.
Yeah. And I think that is partly why this is such an important conversation to have, because there are nuances to this that I think that it's not like just, and that's part of the thing, right? It's like, I am not one box, right? Like there are many here, but this is mine, but it may not be someone else's. So starting at square one, can you share with me what non-binary is and what people should know?
So the general definition, I guess, is people who don't really feel like they are a man or a woman, that those categories don't really fit for them. I guess some people kind of feel like I'm neither, and some people are saying I'm both. And I don't know if that distinction really matters, but I guess it can for whoever is identifying that way. And then what was the second part of your question?
And what people should know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I think just being treated the way or addressed the way that I want to be addressed is important. Like, I don't tend to just kind of share my pronouns. I know that that's starting to be a thing that a lot of people do. If people ask, I'm usually happy to say, and occasionally I'll correct people. But it can be kind of nerve-wracking to do that, if I'm being honest. I think it's, like I said earlier, it's also just like a part of who people are. And gender is a part of who everybody is. Like, it might not be as on the forefront if it's something, if you present more kind of normatively. But it's still, my guess is it's still important to most people to be seen the way that they want to be seen.
Yeah.
And so, I think treating people the way that they want to be treated, kind of the basic starting point.
Yeah. It's the golden rule, folks.
Yeah.
So where does your story begin, Riley? In all of this?
As far as gender goes, running.
Yeah, for gender, for being non-binary. Yeah.
I probably, as a little kid, like a lot of people referred to me as a tomboy. I, from a pretty young age, was very adamant about wearing boys' clothes, not wearing dresses. I was very anti-pink. I've come around to pink. I think it's a fun color now. And, more as a little kid, like, I'd have people thinking I was a boy. Occasionally, it was sort of like a 50-50 split, I'd say, depending on the context and, who knew me. And then middle school was a pretty tough time for me. There's a lot of like social pressure, and it suddenly is like not okay to be a tomboy anymore. And so I started sort of conforming a little bit more, never really to the point of like, I was never really girly, but definitely started wearing women's clothes, and that was just like extremely uncomfortable for me. And I had the benefit of going to a really progressive high school, and had some mentors and role models there where I was like, okay, it's more okay to be who I am, and sort of figured that out in high school and college. And that's also when I found more sort of like the language of non-binary or trans. That's when I got introduced to that. And like, I don't know, like, this is the best language that we have right now. And so like, that's what I'm using to kind of describe this experience of like not really feeling like my body is totally the way I want it to be, or that people perceive me the way that I want to be perceived. So that's I've been pretty solid in who I am, I guess, my whole life, just not the language I've used to describe it has changed.
Yeah. Well, first, really touched my heart here by being so open with me in the audience. So thank you so much. I have so much gratitude for you for showing up right now in this time and space. So thank you. And from my understanding, it's just that non-binary has been part of culture for millennia, that it's always been in our cultures globally. And so this isn't like something new, right?
Right. I would say that, the experiences of people who don't really fit the standard categories isn't new, but definitely the language is changing and how we talk about it is changing. And so I think that's what's new, and that's what people sometimes focus in on.
Yeah. So what was that like for you, that moment of when, like, sounds like high school and college, where you're like, okay, there are others who understand my story, because that's that's their story too. What was that like?
Definitely a little bit of a relief. Like, I mean, I guess the biggest sort of moment where I felt something like that was at my high school, seeing a teacher who looked like me on campus. I was like, oh, you can be like this as an adult. Like, there's actually a future here. That you don't have to be somebody you're not, or like you can keep existing. And that was just, at this point, that was a long time ago, but that was like this, yeah, I guess relief.
Yeah.
That might be the best word to
Yeah.
describe it.
Yeah. That's why role models are so important, and that's why, I mean, like or not, Riley, like, that you could be viewed as a role model too, just by being you. And that's why this is so important, because it is just you being you here, you having one hell of a race. And to be honest, folks, like, if you haven't seen Riley's ultra sign up, please pause this interview right now. We'll wait. It's okay. And see just the level of success that they've been having. It's incredible. You've been absolutely crushing it. First place, podium, overall, finisher. Congratulations on your success. And I do want to get into that part of your life here. I want to kind of get through this part of the interview first, but wow, you're amazing.
Thank you.
So what was that experience like for you? This is, I guess, prior to some of the bigger ultra races implementing a non-binary policy into the races. But, what was it like for you to go to register for a race and you have a decision to make? Like, I'm not either of these boxes in terms of of identification here when it comes to gender. What's that like?
Yeah. So this is one area where I think, like, I really am speaking for myself, and not other people, because for me, having a distinction between gender and sex really matters, with gender being kind of the way that you want to be seen and sort of the whole social component. And then sex being like, I am biologically female, and I haven't done anything to change that, even though now, like, there are those options. So for me, registering for a race, if it says sex, male, female, like, I'm okay with checking that female box, because those are sort of my biological peers. But it really, it used to annoy me if it said gender, male, female, because I don't think that those terms go together. And that's a semantic differentiation that I think I make, and maybe not a lot of other people do. And I recognize that this is like, it's my rules in my head, and it's kind of unfair to expect other people to kind of jump on board that bandwagon. So I do think it's cool that races like Ultra Sign Up, or companies like Ultra Sign Up, are at least making that distinction and then giving that option for, like, all right, this is how I want to be kind of seen at the race, and have race directors address me. And it's nice to have that just kind of pulled out and separated.
Yeah. And you anticipate my next question, which is about, in what ways have ultra races having a non-binary policy? Why is that important to you? But I just think you answered that question here. Have other non-binary runners reached out to you at all? Just in your history? No.
No.
Just curious about that. Yeah.
Yeah, at least not yet.
Not yet. I have a feeling that they probably will. But how can our community be supportive?
For me, it's really just like, I really do prefer people use they them pronouns with me. It kind of is grating with the she her.
Mhm.
I I also am not a fan of when people are like, get it, girl. I'm like, but I'm not really a girl. And even though that's like, they're being so supportive and like really trying to cheer me on. And then I feel guilty about like being frustrated by that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, for me, it's really just like addressing me the way that I like to be addressed. Honestly, I mean, this is a really welcoming and supportive community. I haven't so far felt like I've experienced any like extreme discrimination.
Yeah.
So it's generally a pretty good place to be, I think.
Good. Good. I'm really happy to hear that. Really, truly am. So kind of moving on, I want to like every superhero has an origin story. And so you're my superhero today. So I'd like to know your running origin story. When did you discover that you had a talent for running?
Oh man. I was a pretty big bookworm as a kid. I don't really, I mean, I was always active. My brother and I would play outside a fair amount. I started doing team sports, I guess, in late elementary school and middle school. My family was never a big, like, organized sports family. Um, and then I guess probably in like eighth grade, I realized, like, oh, my favorite day is like when we do the timed mile on the lacrosse team, not days where we're actually playing lacrosse. Um, and it didn't really click, I guess, until sophomore year. I was like, I want to join the cross country team. And I was actually transferring schools at that point. And the soccer coach, I knew her through summer camp, and she talked me into joining the soccer team. And I'm just like not that coordinated. So I had fun. But I was like, I'm rocking this timed mile. Like that's really what I enjoy doing. Um, so ran cross country my last 2 years of high school, was never that great at it. Like I don't think I broke 21 minutes for the 5K.
Uh-huh.
It was a pretty like not sports oriented school. And then when I got to college, I actually just ended up having a ton of time on my hands because academically it was much easier than high school for me. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just, run in the woods. And I met my best friend at that point, and she was a runner, kind of like egged each other on, found out it was an actual sport, um, and did my first ultra. I don't know, it was like probably like 18 or 19, something like that.
Wow. That's young by ultra standards.
Yeah, it was. And it was a small local event, or local to New Jersey. We were in Vermont at the time. And she came in first and I came in second behind her. And so I was like, oh, maybe I could be good at this. And then just kind of kept running.
So what was that? So that was like the spark that lit the ultra match for you. It's like there's something here. But how about transitioning to the longer distances in this? Like, what was that transition like of like, I think 100K, 100 mile are definitely in the bag here.
Well, so I guess I should back up a little bit and say the first ultra I did was a 50K. And the reason I did it was to get into a 50 miler, the Cayuga Trails 50 in upstate New York. My best friend is from Ithaca, and she was like, I really want to do this race. So I was like, cool, let me do it with you. But at the time we needed a qualifying event. So we just found this 50K because I'd never run a marathon before. I was like, all right, let's just do this, get it over with.
Wait a second. Hold on, folks. You had never run a marathon before?
No, I'd run like one half marathon, maybe two.
And that's the progression, folks. You go from half marathon to 50.
Well, I was young. I was like, yeah, all right. Like, what's the difference between a 50K and a marathon? Like
just a few miles. Come on now.
So did that so that I could do this 50 miler. And like, I think Cayuga Trails 50, I suffered more than any other race I had ever done, because it was, you know, such a big jump up in distance. But I guess I just didn't really think about the jumps after that. Like, I just didn't know what I was doing, you know,
Yeah.
like the 100-mile distance was the like cool distance to do. Like, that's, you ran 100 miles, and so I wanted to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so so very cool that you, yeah, at such a young age were able to, you know, even have ultras introduced to you, and then but to even have like the gumption to say, oh, I'm gonna go do that. It's pretty incredible. But you know, you early on seem to have some pretty amazing success with how you were finishing. So at what point did you sort of discover, like, I think that I could really, you know, do well at these races?
I don't, I'm not sure. I mean, it definitely pretty early on, I was smitten with the sport. And I was pretty sure that if I just kept at it, that I would get somewhere with it. I think that's like I mean, I never thought I was like the smartest person in school or the fastest or anything like that, but I just like kind of keep banging my head against the wall until I get somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And so I kind of had faith that like, all right, I did well at a couple events. I knew they were small and like not drawing a big field, but I had confidence that I was like, yeah, if I keep running, like I think I could be competitive in this sport.
At what point in time do you decide to work with the running coach? I know you're working with David Roach
Yep.
and Team Swap,
Yep.
Some Work All Play, and you know, go look at that roster of runners. Oh my God.
I had actually reached out to David when I was like right out of college, I think. And at the time, Megan was pretty busy and they were kind of a smaller operation. And he was like, you know, we're full, but stay in touch, basically. Um, and then we kind of stayed in a little bit of contact every once in a while for the next couple of years. And then after Bandera, I ended up being able to start working with him, which I was just like really thrilled about. I have to say I wasn't interested in like shopping around for other coaches. I was pretty sure that I wanted to work with David and Megan.
Mm-hmm. And what was it about that training that really helped elevate you as a runner?
It's difficult to put your finger on like one specific thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I think for a lot of years I didn't train. Like I would just run a lot. I didn't do a lot of speed work. So it's only been in the past couple of years that I started trying to integrate workouts more. And then when I started working with David in January, he definitely has me doing more strides than I've ever done before. So I have to think there's something magic about that. And then also, he tells me when to rest. Like, I think that's invaluable. Like sometimes if I have a little niggle crop up and I would think like, this is fine. Like, let me just go for a couple more runs and see where this gets me. He's pretty immediately like, no, just take a day or two off. And it's hard to know with that stuff. Like maybe you'd be fine if you just kept running, but it also really doesn't hurt to have that day or two off, as frustrating as it can be. So I feel like those are the major differences, like more strides, also probably more intensity in the speed work. And he's like really good about emphasizing rest.
Yeah. And, you know, rest is one of the most important, you know, tools that you have in your bag that I think many of us don't realize.
Yeah, definitely.
So would you say that you're probably pushing yourself too hard before? In a different way?
Yeah, maybe in a different way. Cause I think that before I was just like volume. Like I really like volume. I just want to do as high volume as I possibly can, and wasn't really pushing as hard doing speed or doing as much speed.
Mhm.
I don't think I ever, like, you hear about people who are like back in the old days would like hammer 100 miler and then go out for a crazy run the next day. And like, I was never doing stuff like that. Like I respected the race distances, but definitely have more of sort of a variation now. Like the intensity is more intense, but the resting is also more.
Mhm. Um, so kind of winding down, I want to get your thoughts again about Western states. First question is, they usually hand out a kind of a novelty giant golden ticket to to people who want it. Did you get one? And if so, what did you do with the ticket?
Yeah, I got one and I brought it home with me, and getting it through the airport was hilarious. My friend was like taking pictures of me walking through the airport with my 2 backpacks on and carrying my ticket. And going through TSA, they were all very friendly and kind of like, "Oh, what's this?" And um, "What's the prize for this?" And I said, "I ran 100 miles so that I get to run another 100 miles." But nobody in the airport really knew what to do with it. They were all like, "Yeah, take it to the next person." And finally, the flight attendant was like, "Yeah, we can probably stick this behind the first class seats." So the ticket made it home.
In first class.
In first class. I was not sitting in first class.
So you said that you love running downhill.
Yeah.
And Western states has got like, ooh wee. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a relatively downhill course. But do you foresee any like challenges already? Because the course, you were out there last year, generally what to expect. Are there any elements that you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be a challenge, or I'm going to have to really kind of focus my training on this?
Yeah. I mean, it's Western states, so it's going to be hot. I think, I really think staying cool is going to be key. And just really taking the time to get iced up early on, because it's really easy to think, I feel good. This is just wasting time. Let me keep going. So I think the challenge is going to be getting as much ice packed on my body as possible.
Yeah. Riley Brady, golden ticket winner. She'll be at Olympic Valley in this June 24th. I am so excited for you and your family and your support system and the adventure that you are embarking on. It's going to be a fun ride, and I can't wait to see you in
Thank you
June.
so much. Really, this is awesome. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.